When we look at contagious mastitis, clearly contagious mastitis, Staph aureus and Strep agalactia, for example, these are organisms that are transferred from cow to cow during the milking process. There are really only three things that can transfer these infections. The first is hands, the second is the cloth or the towel you're using to wipe the teats, and the third is the liner within the milking machine. Now clearly reducing the risk in terms of hands, we wear gloves and regularly rinse our hands to prevent the spread of infection. For paper towels, then ideally you use one paper towel per cow, again minimizing the spread of infection. And then we come to the liners. Now, obviously the liner is going to represent the greatest risk because the liner goes from cow to cow. The liner is in contact with the teat for 4 to 6 minutes, whereas hands are in contact just for a fraction of a second. And the liner is contaminated with milk. If in a conventional system, there'll be between 2 and 4 mils of milk just held within the mouthpiece of the liner when the unit comes off the machine. Now, when you put the liner on and onto the next cow to be milked, that milk is running down the inside of the liner, so milk from the first cow is transferred onto the teat of the second cow. And if there was any infection in that milk, then there is an increased risk of mastitis.
As with any dairy herd, we have a level of mastitis, and it's been our desire to improve where we've been. Our big battle has always been an environmental issue rather than contagious. However, as the years have gone on, we're seeing and talking to the vets and seeing how that is actually some of these bugs are adapting and becoming more of a problem. And with that, we've actually looked to invest into how we can try and reduce that problem here in the parlour and out in the shed itself as well.
What cluster flushing is doing is hugely reducing the carryover of infection. We have carried out laboratory tests on that, swabbing the inside of the liners, and the figures show that well over 90% of all the organisms are removed by this simple process of cluster flushing.
We were starting to see a crossover of contamination from cow to cow. We put in a very manual system of actually spraying each unit by hand. Obviously, from a labour point of view, that wasn't very helpful, and we were ending up putting an extra half body in the parlour all the time to try and help with that. And to be honest with you, when you're pushed and things are going on, and as we are a normal farm, so we've got all the usual things to deal with. It just created more of a backlog, and you had some operators doing it and some not, where at least with this system we have more control. Also with the teat dip or teat spray application the way it is, we also know that it's put on automatically, systematically, so therefore there's no variation between operators as well, where teats could be missed or what have you from there. So, and I think that's peace of mind from my point of view as well.
When the cow's milk flow drops, the vacuum is cut off to the cluster. The teat dip is then put into the system, which is then a small blast of air applicates it to the underside of the cow's teat. When that process has taken place, the ACR pulls off and hangs up, and then there's a number of flushes that takes place to wash out any residue that's left in the cluster assembly.
Of the systems of applying post-milking teat disinfectant, there are going to be advantages and disadvantages of a range of systems. If you use a teat dip cup, then you stand a good chance of getting the teat fully covered in teat dip. But the application of the dip will be some time after the unit has been removed. It may only be seconds, but it may be a few minutes. Applying a spray is slightly easier. You don't have to get in amongst the cow's teats, but there is a risk that you'll only cover one side of the teat, and there is an increased risk that you'll miss the teats. Using automated systems, the automated system either runs the teat dip down the side of the teat, or the teat dip is actually blown up against the end of the teat. Now, I accept it only covers the end of the teat, and therefore there must be a theoretical risk involved in this, but what it does do, of course, is blow the teat dip against the end of the teat while the canal is still open, and as such, it's likely that a small amount of dip will actually get inside the end of the canal, which is the critical area as far as the development of mastitis colonies are concerned, and the development of the next case of mastitis.
Well, we only had the system in a matter of months now, but certainly over the last 6 to 8 weeks we've seen a huge reduction in what mastitis tubes we bought the same period last year. Less cows out of the tank. We actually meter our waste milk, so we actually know how much we're actually sending down the drain on a daily basis. And again, looking at the same period for last year, there's a reduction in that as well, which is obviously good news.
In a traditional parlour, when you have one case of mastitis, you can end up with 4 cases because of the cross-contamination. When you have a back-flushing system, one case of mastitis is one case of mastitis.
It definitely gives the operator more time now, because he can, rather than having to put a line on and then rush around to teat dip as cows are coming off, trying to maximise and get the workload as efficient as he can. He's actually got time now to actually look at the cows and see what's going on as well. So yeah, I think there's been added benefits to the whole thing. We have actually reduced our milking time as well, which is really an added bonus. We never looked to do that. It wasn't one of our core things we set out to do, and it's a good thing, hopefully, to be able to spend more time with cows out to the parlour as well for the rest of the day.